let's just do it. It's fine. It's something different. They're going to be like, what? Why is she speaking like Hebrew and why is she? Allah Akbar Salam. Jabagwan. Namaste. Yeah, I think we should do this first. Nice.
Like our content? It's funded by viewers like you. Please consider becoming a sustaining supporter of New Church Live today.
So good morning, folks. Pastor Chuck Blair here. Great to have you joining me. It's great to be back from South Africa. That was a very fun, enjoyable trip. And to anyone from down there who's watching us this morning, just great to have you on board. It was wonderful to meet so many of you on our trips down there. And today what we're going to talk about is listening to the whisper of God's voice. And how is it that we can hear it, trust the nudges? What do the nudges look like? How do they work? And today is really about learning to maybe have a conversation where we can think about that little voice, that little nudge, and really coming to trust it more and more. Just even look at the word inspiration, like spirit, spiritus means wind, breath, or God. It can mean all those things. And the idea that when we are inspired, it's this idea of God's presence coming into our lives. And oftentimes that's in these very, very subtle, very gentle ways. And it's rarely that big. I mean, there's a famous story in the Bible, Paul on the road to Damascus, this big blinding light, this big vision. On occasion, you'll hear people talk about that, and they will have such an occasion where that happens. But most of the time where God speaks to us, it's very quiet. It's very gentle. And it pulls us out of ourselves. And I think in this life, it's really hard to create this space where we can listen, because our lives tend to be, between two poles a lot of the time, where there's a lot of struggle on one hand, but then all this great life on the other. And there's this gap in between. And how do we just sort of find that place to just be quiet enough to allow something else to come in. So much of life, right, are these invitations to things. And when we find that space where we can really pay attention to God's gentle nudges, not just our own chitter-chatter, it's a beautiful thing to think. What's the life we're being invited into there? I think maybe this. Maybe it's a life that's just filled with a lot of gratitude, a lot of joy, a lot of moments where we're called, again, very gently to just reach outside of ourselves, to just try something a little different. And that's what we're hoping to go out of here today with, is that idea of these nudges. So what I want to start with today is I want to start with a question here. And with this question, you're more than welcome to text me in and answer. What do the best of God's gentle nudges invite you to? So where's that invitation? Like when you feel this nudge come, what is it tending to ask you to do? And I'd ask you to please text that into me as the musicians come out here. You can text that into 215-740-3662. As we take a look at these nudges, and would love to hear from you. Yeah, when these nudges happen, where do they tend to call you? How do they tend to call you? What do they tend to ask of you in terms of leaning forward and moving out there into the world? So friends, last word is welcome. It is great to be back. It's great to be back with all of you. Welcome to New Church Live.
Good morning. So I've wanted to do this song for a while. I had a nudge to do this one. It's a little bit strange and goofy at times. I just wanted to preface that, but it's a really great song that I learned as a kid. And it kind of fits with what Chuck was saying, pushing us to try something a little different. It's called God is In. God is in the child's eyes, see them wide, wondrous wise. God is in the rain and snow, and each snowflake this we know. God is in the trees and air, the rocks, the birds, the bees, the bears. God is in the clouds above, God is in each act of love. God is in the ocean's deep, some say God goes there to sleep. God is in the mountains high, whistling a lullaby. God is in the darkest woods, God is in your neighborhood. God is in a place that's near, sometimes it's just not so clear. God is is, God is is, God is in, God is in, God is in, God is in. God is in your strangest pleasure. Some say God is into leather. God is into body piercing, in your nipple, lip, and nose ring. God is in your new tattoo, in your scars and birthmarks too. God is in your brand new nose, in your control top pantyhose. God is in the latest fad, except for bungee jumping, that's dangerous and bad. God is in your cellular phone. God will not leave you alone. God is in the internet, wondering why you're not there yet. God is in Vogue and Spin and Rolling Stone, 'cause God is in, 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 God is in. God is in the Christian house, bread and wine and holy cross. God is in the Jewish home, Shalom Haverim Shalom. God is in the Muslim, Allahu Akbar Salam. God is in the Hindu way, Jai Bhagwan, Namaste. God is in those dancing pagans, each drop of perspiration. God is in the Wiccan coven, 12 plus 1, a perfect dozen. God is in the Druid song, that's why they go on so long. God is in the Buddhist chair, saying don't just do something, sit there. God is in the Vatican, God goes there for vacation. God is in the Quaker meeting, sleeping till they start the singing. God is in your guru. How do you spell that? G-U-R-U. God is in the atheist saying, yeah, I don't exist. God is in the flowing towel band and no. God is in the Rastaman, I and on and on and on. God is in the Mooney wedding. Who gets to begin the betting? God is in the Hare Krishna, rub their heads and make a wish. Now God is in, 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 God is in. God is in the ozone layer, holier and holier. God is in the atom bomb, or at least the atom bomber's mom. God is in Chechnya, Srebrenica, Slovenica, Serbia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Montana, Oklahoma. God is incredulous at all the stuff we do to us. God is inspired by those who fly and those who try. God is insatiable, so sing and dance way past full. God is in you and me. Someday God will help us see that God is in love with love. So live in love and that's enough. God is in, God is in, God is inside of you. And all you don't and all you do, and God is in, God is in, God is in your greatest doubt. The jury's out, the doctor's out, but God is in. God is in, 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 God is in.
So Emily, you have to laugh. Billy Jonas, who wrote that song. Yes, he just stayed with us a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
Yes. So Billy may be watching today. Who knows? And so it was. Yeah, we're actually going to use a little thing at the end. So again, God nudges, right? And in those little moments. And the beautiful part of it, friends, is I feel like when we listen to the nudges, there's some themes. There's some themes there when we listen. And let me read for you. We got a bunch of responses from people texting in online. We'll start with this one. See the beautiful bounty of all God's beautiful creation. And if we listen closely to help us make those difficult decisions about the life we wish to live. First nudge was a stranger asking me, "What are you doing here?" Another person wrote, "God nudges me to text someone." That's good. Easy one, overcoming our fears. Another one, I have experienced God's nudges as taking the heart-pounding fear moment of speaking up. Sometimes it's helping someone with a ride when they're walking or standing up for someone when they've been wronged. It always seems to be wronged, sorry. It always seems to be in the moments when I can be an extension of the life he wants us to share with others. We're going to come back to that theme a lot because it's a beautiful way to phrase it. Thank you for sending that. Gentle nudges to get off the couch. Gentle nudges to really listen to each other. Gentle nudge to be at peace with myself. The call to expand community. Drop what I'm doing and speak to a family member on hand. Beautifully said. Trust in God and forget your fear. So many beautiful ones there, friends. And it is kind of interesting, right? Like there's this theme of these nudges that we're caught in a fear, we're caught in a worry, or we're caught in our own distraction. I mean, I think life has a lot of distractions. And then there's this nudge, and there's kind of this line, and this line kind of bumps us out a little bit. It's a nudge that is bumping us out. Those kinds of stories, there's all kinds of stories about that in the Bible, and that sort of sets us up for the story today. It's an Old Testament story, and it's about hearing this nudge, hearing this call and simply responding with this beautiful idea like, here I am. Here I am, Lord. Speak, for your servant hears. It's just that centering and that centering of deep presence that we can start moving forward out there into the world, out there beyond our fears, as we try to do the best we can to make the world a better place. Now the background to the story today, again, ancient story. It starts with a woman named Hannah. She didn't have a child. And at that point in time, like being childless at that time was a really challenging thing because they didn't have Social Security or retirement plans or 401ks or 403b, they didn't have any of that, obviously. So the job of the oldest son was to take care of aging parents. So if you didn't have a child, you essentially had nothing. You were looking at a life in which you were going to be at some point in time destitute. So because she was worried about being destitute, she had this desperation to become a mother. And that's where we pick up the story here. She goes into a temple and she's so filled with anguish that the priest in the temple, this priest by the name of Eli, comes up to her and he is sure that she is drunk. Positive she's drunk. So he confronts her and she has these words with him. I am a woman who is deeply troubled, praying here out of my deep anguish and grief. And then the miracle happens. The story advances. And she's blessed with a child. That child will end up being one of the greatest prophets of ancient Israel, a prophet by the name of Samuel. And this is what she says with the child. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked him. So now I give him to the Lord. And she gives him to be raised by Eli. So we see, friends, again, and I think this is important, like listening to these nudges that move us outward, the things are always being born in our lives. They just are. I mean, it's interesting, one of the questions that we love to ask, we actually use this a couple of times down in South Africa, is just asking someone, what's the rose, what's the bud, what's the thorn in their life? Because people have that rose, they have that thing that's really blooming. And they have that thorn. That thing is just a pain. And beautifully, they also have that bud. They have that sense of something that is growing, something that's changing, something that they want to give birth to in their lives. So the story starts here with this idea of personal anguish, her personal anguish, and then it moves on into this idea of national anguish, this country at this time that was just struggling mightily with trying to find a vision for moving forward. And we see that, with this line here, friends. The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days, the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. Eli, whose eyes were becoming so weak that he could barely see. It's kind of this interesting juxtaposition. And another line to kind of throw into this is, we'll just kind of look at this soup here for a minute. Beautiful line from Proverbs 29:8. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish. It's interesting, friends, the way that vision goes. We're asked to sort of have a vision of the world. I mean, that's sort of part of what church is supposed to be. And that includes synagogues and mosques, the same thing. We're all coming at it from different perspectives, but those different perspectives, in many ways, share much of the same vision, which is, let's get back to what is ultimately, permanently real. Because we can live life at such a surface level, just going through the motions. And how is it that we can listen to those little nudges? One of the people who texted in talked about like that nudge to build community. I think we can sense that nudge when we have times, when we live in times, which I think maybe we're struggling with a bit now. Like, how do we actually find a vision? How do we find something that's actually going to pull us forward? And this is where Samuel comes in. And it's a beautiful line. I remember this story a lot as a little boy. Then the Lord called Samuel. Samuel's just a little guy here. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli, the priest, and said, "Here I am, you called me." So he's hearing the voice of God, but he's thinking it's the voice of Eli. But Eli said, "I did not call you. Go back and lie down." So he went and lay down. Again, the Lord called, "Samuel." And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "My son," Eli said, "I did not call you. Go back and lie down." Now Samuel still did not know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel a third time, and Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as in other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." It's a beautiful story here, folks, because it's interesting the way the response works is the response works with "Here I am." So these nudges, I think a lot of the time when God whispers to us, when he touches our souls in different ways, it comes across as something very personal, something to us. And it's an interesting way, and it's a little bit of a paradox. It comes as something to us, and the way we receive it is we just go, "Here I am, Lord." And it's a struggle to find words around how important that is. You know, God reaches us. This is really important. Like, God reaches us. He reaches you. He reaches me. He reaches the world where we are. It's easy to believe that somehow we'll go someplace or we'll talk to someone or we'll have this, that, or the other thing, and that will somehow pull us out, and then we'll find God's voice, and then we'll hear the nudge, and then. And that we have to do it right to find the nudge, or we have to whatever to find the nudge. But that's not really the way God's love works. God's love is not transactional, it's transformative. So it's a matter of stepping into the love that's right there. After church today, I'm going to be going down to the city doing a baptism for a beautiful little baby down in the city today. And I know stepping into that space, there's just going to be this love. And when we're in that place, friends, I think that is where those nudges come from. And it's so much of just, "Oh, here I am. I'm right here." It's this very present part, and it's not self-centered. It's not the I part here. It's just we are where we are. We are in the worlds that we are to be in, the worlds we're to hear. And there's many beautiful paintings on this. This is a beautiful one of Eli and Samuel here. And the response, friends, the response to all this is the Lord came and stood there, calling at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." Speak, for your servant is listening. That part too, friends, where we sense this nudge, and we're able to just hear a call, and we're able to we're able to get a sense of openness. Openness to what the Lord is trying to do in our lives. That listening, friends, like, I love wordplay, and one of the real fascinating words in the Bible is the word obedience. I remember feeling a lot like the word obedience was, kind of this big triangle and God up there in the clouds and "thou shalt obey." But the word obedience has a beautiful meaning to it. Obedire means to hear. And I listened to this beautiful sermon by Walter Brueggemann once, and he said, the word obedience, this is the actual connotation. The connotation, if we're really obeying God's voice, obedience literally means to lean in and listen. To lean in and listen. I find that so, just even the physicality of it, like it's really leaning in to try to hear God's voice. And God's voice so much of the time is quiet. So much of the time it's not bombastic. So much of the time it's just this gentleness, this wisdom of tenderness that's pulling us forward. And what we do, friends, is we learn to trust the nudge. We learn to trust the nudge. I think that's so much a journey of our lives, is learning to trust these little intuitive parts of life. I think back to times in life, again, and these are true for me, they're true for you, I'm sure, where we're in a place where we're not able to trust the nudge just because our head is so filled with noise. All the fears, worries, anxieties, all of those things that are just spinning around. And it's really hard to feel or experience the nudge there at all. But there's something here that God's asking of us, a different way to step in, a different way to see it, which is just trusting that nudge and knowing that it's a miracle and knowing, friends, like it will occur. It will occur. These nudges, and this is a miracle, I think, in many ways. These nudges are part of reality. They are part of our spiritual life. I guarantee you're going to have a nudge within the next hour or 2 hours. Probably more than one. And the question is, can we just, when we feel that nudge, go, okay, God, here I am. Go ahead and speak. I'm listening. You want to know what obedience looks like? Maybe it looks a little bit like that. That deep listening to these things and understanding, friends, that the source of this nudge, like where does this nudge come from? And this is from a canonical book for the new church, the book Secrets of Heaven, 5489. Good impulses are the result of the presence of love towards the neighbor and love towards God within individuals who are being spiritually regenerated. So the mechanics of how this works, God gives us this deep inmost, this part of you that is in heaven. This part of you that's able to cry, that's able to laugh, that's able to feel deep joy as well as deep sorrow when the world isn't what we imagine it could be. And if we think of it this way, friends, like with trusting the nudge, the idea that those nudges are always coming through us. I think so much of the time we're expecting God's voice to be somehow different than what it is. I always want God's voice to be like, Chuck, this is what's going to happen over the next 12 months. So I can know exactly the way life is going to go. That's the voice I expect. And I think that if I do things right, that somehow this thing over here, this list will come true. That's not the way God works. That's, again, transactional love. Transformative love means love is holding the whole thing. Love is literally the air we breathe. It's the light we see. It runs through the people we're with. So God's voice, friends, God's voice is that nudge. We can go to the Lord's Word, and we're to go to the Lord's Word to try to understand more and more about that. And so much of it will be guiding us right back to this part of like, all right, listen to that nudge. This is God's voice. We may think it's someone else or here, there, everywhere. No, let's get clear. It may take us a little while, but let's get, no, okay, this is God's voice. This is God's voice. What can we do? Here I am. Speak, Lord, because I'm listening. Friends, when we come back, I want to talk just a little more about how we can take this idea and really try to live it out and really try to be clear, like where those calls might be, and also being aware this is important, right? They're not every call is going to work. I mean, I think in that part, this is a little bit of an aside, but I think an important one. We certainly don't want to look at these calls in life And to think, if we just follow this call, everything works out just the way we want it. That's a transactional view of love, not a transformative. But it does mean this, that when we pay attention to these nudges, things are going to open, things are going to be born, and we will find a way to live more and more into that Samuel part of our lives. Enjoy the next song.
Turn it inside out so I can see the part of you that's drifting over me. And when I wake, you're never there. And when I sleep, you're everywhere. You're everywhere. Just tell me how I got this far. Just tell me why you're here and who you are. 'Cause every time I look, you're never there. And every time I sleep, you're always there. 'Cause you're everywhere to me. And when I close my eyes, it's you I see. You're everything I know that makes me believe I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I recognize the way you make me feel. It's hard to think that you might not be real. I sense it now, the water's getting deep. I try to wash the pain away from me, away from me. 'Cause you're everywhere to me. And when I close my eyes, it's you I see. You're everything I know that makes me believe I'm not alone. I'm not alone. When I touch your hand, it's then I understand the beauty that's within. It's now that we begin. You always light my way. Hope there never comes a day. No matter where I go, I always feel you so. 'Cause you're everywhere to me. And when I close my eyes, it's you I see. You're everything I know that makes me believe I'm not alone. 'Cause you're everywhere to me. And when I close my eyes, it's you I see. You're everything I know that makes me believe I'm not alone. You're in everyone I see. So tell me, do you see me?
Hey New Church Live, happy Sunday. This is Angela. I just wanted to let you all know about an upcoming event that we're doing. You may have seen it on our homepage. We're doing a Q&A on the afterlife. Pastor Chuck and Curtis Childs are hosting this event. It's free. Anyone is welcome to participate. You just have to register ahead of time, and you can actually submit questions that you might have about the afterlife. So we know that this is a topic that is of interest to a lot of people. Maybe you've lost a loved one. Maybe you just have a lot of questions about what happens after death. or maybe you just want to learn more about New Church theology. New Church teachings have a lot to offer on the afterlife, and Curtis and Chuck are going to be sitting down and taking some questions. It's best to send them ahead of time so they can get them organized and answer as many as they can, but we will have a little bit of time for live questions as well. But this is not a live stream event, so you have to pre-register. There will be a link sent to you, and even if you can't be there live, if you want the recording sent to you, it's a great idea to pre-register, because then that will automatically come to you. So it's on the events tab on our website, and you can pre-register today. And like I said, you can submit questions to that. The event is December 4th at 7 p.m. And again, it's online, so anyone watching this can participate. And if you're watching this later, after it's happened, you can still go to our website and get the download of that event sent to you. So no matter when you're watching this, if you have questions about the afterlife, we really encourage you to participate in this event. And we hope that it is a resource for you all and an opportunity to just learn more. So if you have any questions, you can reach out on our homepage. And then, of course, I want to offer and encourage you all to consider donating to New Church Live as we come to the end of the calendar year. This is often a time when people think about the organizations that they want to support, and we hope you'll consider supporting New Church Live. If you want to do that, you can text the word New Church Live, all one word, all lowercase, to 77977. You can make a donation on your phone, or you can go to our website and click the donate tab. So we hope you'll participate, and we hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Love that song that he sang, the idea of like God everywhere. And I think a lot of the time we can lose track of God's voice. And one way, there's many ways we can lose track of it. One way is where we start to see God's voice just as being all about guilt and not about good impulses. Now, is a little bit of guilt a good thing? Probably. I would not want to be around someone who never felt any guilt about anything. But we certainly don't want to live there, and we certainly don't want to surround our lives with this idea of this omnipresent God who's everywhere. Sort of like the KGB with eyes and spies everywhere throughout. It's not that at all. It is everywhere throughout, but it's not with guilt. It's not with guilt. It's with good impulses. Can you really surround your life? Just imagine if your life was surrounded with good impulses. Friends, I was out walking this morning, and there was this beautiful line, and this author was saying, Parker Palmer was saying, we have to ask, what are our lives aging towards? I'm going to be 60 relatively soon, so this is like a question I think about, question most of us think about. Where are we aging towards? Are we going to make choices that we're actually aging towards bitterness? That doesn't sound so enticing to me. Or are we going instead to think, where the way the Lord is pulling my life, and this is what I think, this isn't what we do, this is what the Lord is doing. What the Lord is doing is he's really pulling us towards more and more to see these good impulses and these opportunities that are right in front of us in ways big and small. And how might that work? Like, what might be the mechanics? Well, I was thinking 3. We get a call, we learn to let go, and we focus. So the call, friends, is this impulse. That's what these nudges are. they're impulse. Impulse is different than the word impulsive. It's not an impulsive thing. It's just an impulse. An impulsive behavior is when we have to repeat over and over and over and over and over again. It may be a one-time thing, but it's this impulse to reach out. And again, are we going to trust the good intention, or are we going to somehow let guilt and shame and all that stuff get in the way? I was backstage and, thinking about what I wanted to share here as we go into the last part of the service. And one of the ones was last week, just a couple days ago, I got a great little note from a man lives a couple miles from here. But I'd done the wedding for him and his wife, baptized their daughter probably I don't know, probably 15 years ago now. I hadn't heard from him in probably, way before COVID. Probably hadn't heard from him in 8 years. He just said, hey, just thinking about you today. That really made my day to get that kind of little note. That is somebody who isn't just listening to the good impulse, but they're actually the little nudge. They're actually being the nudge. Because when that stuff happens, friends, right? It brings up like, well, who can I do that for? What's the call there? The second part is this idea of letting go. Now, what does that mean? I think, again, real important to remember that when we get these nudges, we really have to let go of the result. If you have a nudge to contact someone and they don't contact you back, that doesn't mean you weren't supposed to do it. That doesn't mean that actually wasn't a legitimate nudge from God to move out there into the world. If your nudge is to, as one person said, to stand up for someone who's being attacked, well, that's not always going to go well. If your nudge is to go out there and build community, well, that's not always going to go well. If your nudge is to put down your phone and have a beautiful connection with family, great idea to put down the phone, but connection with family, I think we would all agree, is not always going to go well. But that doesn't mean the nudge was wrong. It just means it was a nudge, and we have to let go, because so much of this is just learning what the real musicality of unconditional love looks like. The unconditionality of it looks like I'm going to trust the nudge and just let go of the outcome. Because I'm just here to do my bed. Here I am, Lord. I'm just here to do my bed. How others receive you, how others might take it, that's, in a way, it may sound too extreme, really none of your business. Really none of your business. Listen to that nudge, that letting go part. I think when we see people who've let go, it was interesting. Last night on this stage, the stage was filled with high school students doing song and dance, or 2 nights ago, excuse me. And it was amazing to watch those people who are really talented at singing and really talented at dancing, because they just have a way where they've just let go. You can see the music, you can see the dance moving through them. They're not overacting or overperforming or robotic in any way. I love that someone said, the nudge is to find peace. It's a beautiful nudge. I think we find that when we just allow the dance to move through us. We just allow the music to move through us. I think that's the oneness that God asks of us all the time. And the last one, friends, and this one is one I think very important, is the idea of focus. So we hear the call, which is this general thing. We learn as we're listening to call to let go of all our worries, all our concerns, all the list of why we shouldn't listen to this nudge. That's a big letting go. And then at the other side of that, there's a focus. Sometimes it's focused on a task. Sometimes it's really focused on a person. But it has edges to it. This language from Kate Bowler is really beautiful. What we do is we find the square footage of our limited agency. I love that line. We went over this with sermon writing team. That got a lot of applause, per se. Because that's what God is asking us to do. Like, literally, here's the square footage. We all have limited agency. We cannot change the world. But as the famous saying goes, I'm paraphrasing here, we can't change the world, but that doesn't excuse us from doing what is ours to do. So I have limited agency. There's only so much I can do. I have to measure out the square footage of it. Like, what's the block of what I can do? And then I do that. Because if the square footage is too big, the task becomes impossible. I'm a history guy. I think it's probably safe to say nothing gets changed just by one individual. It gets changed by getting clear. What is the square footage of our limited agency? This gets said a lot in Christian circles, but I think it's true. I mean, even the Lord God, Savior, Jesus Christ, one God of heaven and earth, like the dude. And he, in his ministry, collects 12 disciples, just a group of 12. He didn't convert the whole world. He focused on those right in front of him. And then they moved through the world, one nudge at a time. And they learned to bring healing to what they saw as their square footage. I think, friends, that makes such a big difference when we get really clear about the leverage in those moments. I think of this picture, and it's kind of interesting with Billy Jonas in that first song. And this is from some of the flooding that was down in Asheville, North Carolina. And I want to close with this picture because I think it really shows, the way we can hold life. Now, clearly, there was a call there. A call by people to reach out, to help neighbors. And it's interesting with the way disasters work, right? When really horrible things happen, it's amazing how quickly people come to this, very quickly. Without a lot of training, without a lot of organization, without a lot of this, that, or the other thing. People have a way of doing this. Why? Because there's those good impulses. They're there. And somehow, when life gets off the rails, we listen in a very different way. And what a grace that is in moments where there's natural disasters. So I love this picture from that way, that somebody heard the call. Clearly, they had an impulse, and clearly there was stuff they had to let go of, right? You're just there to help. You're not there to prove that somebody needs help or somebody doesn't. You're just there to help. There's definitely a letting go. And then there is this focus, the square footage of our limited agency. I might be able to ask it this way. How big is your boat? See, that picture, there's 4 people there. It looks like one of them's in charge and maybe a couple other ones are just there to get rescued. Maybe that was their job, their role was that in God's providence, they were there. And here is this person who's helping them, and this person is taking care of their square footage. Is taking care of their boat. So many problems in our world can feel so intractable, so beyond what we can wrestle with. The world is better served not by trying to find that way where we can once and for all, as an individual, figure out, yep, I'm going to make the change. Change is going to happen all over. No, it's much more meaningful to figure out the change that's in your backyard, to figure out your boat, to figure out the square footage of your limited agency. And God's going to constantly be nudging you there. Going to constantly have good impulses that will keep on flowing through you. And the trick is, friends, be quiet enough to listen. Be quiet enough to hear. What we can do this afternoon is not go out of church or go out of your house as you're watching New Church Live, to not go out with this big list. These are all the things I'm going to do today. Maybe the task today is just to go out quiet. Trusting, and you can 100% trust it, God's going to give you a little good nudge here and there. And then to go back to this sermon and these beautiful words. Here I am, Lord. Speak, for your servant hears. That, I think, friends, is where we make a difference in the world. I think that's where the nudges become real. And it's a beautiful part. We've been speaking about this a lot over the past few weeks. Spoke about it a lot in South Africa. Part of the real genius of the idea, and this comes from Christian New Church perspective, that we really can live heaven now. You really can. Today might feel like hell for understandable reasons. And we can still live heaven now because we can still listen to those good impulses that are right from God to our best selves. Amen. So friends, what we're going to do now is we're going to close today's service with a little prayer, a little blessing, and then some last music. So I'd ask you to please join me in prayer. Lord, thank you for your presence here today. And Lord, help us to listen to those nudges, to lean in and listen as best we can, to find the quietness that we need to do that, to the memory as well that you call us by our name. And Lord, also, this deep commitment to really trying to heal what is ours to heal today, to step forward in the ways we are called to step forward in today, ways that are small, ways that are meaningful, ways that actually make a difference. As is famously said, we can do no great things. All we can do are small things with great love. Lord, today, nudge us a little bit in that direction. Amen. Our prayer. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. Have a great week, friends.
We're going to close with an original song that we do with our band called Turn Your Face to the Sun. Turn your face to the sun and the shadows fall behind you. You're not the only one who thinks of all the time you've been lost and then refound again. So inhale, then exhale again. Turn your face to the sun and the shadows fall behind you. What we see mainly depends on what we look for. I'm completely free to become who I need to be. I'm not afraid of storms, for I am learning how to sail my ship. Oh, I'm learning how to sail my ship. What we see mainly depends on what we look for. I'm completely free to become who I need to be. I'm not afraid of storms, for I am learning how to sail my ship. Oh, I'm learning how to sail my ship. Ooh, I'm learning how to sail my ship. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful week. See you soon.